Marcus Reed, 38, ex-military with a limp from a long-forgotten skirmish on the outer colonies, had carved out a quiet existence piloting the night shuttle on New Terra's Route 47. The refugee terminal was his last stop before the depot, a neon-lit purgatory where the displaced huddled against the perpetual rain. He preferred the solitude, no prying eyes on his scarred hands gripping the wheel, no small talk to dredge up memories of explosions and lost comrades. The electric hum of the bus was his only companion, punctuated by the rhythmic slap of wipers against the storm dot at precisely 2:17 a.m. She appeared like a shadow materializing from the downpour. Barely 4'10", her deep violet-purple skin shimmered under the terminal's flickering lights. Long blonde hair matted and clinging to her shoulders in sodden waves that reached her knees. 4 muscular arms were wrapped tightly around a weathered duffel bag, her only possession. The other drivers sneered at her. The purple runt, they called her, banishing her to the cold back seats with dismissive waves. But Marcus, with his broad 6'4" frame hunched over the controls, simply cracked the door and muttered, "Front seat's dry if you want it." She hesitated, golden eyes wide and luminous, like twin suns trapped in amber flicking up to meet his. There was wariness there, etched deep from a lifetime of being overlooked or outright rejected. Her species, the Varani, were legends in the galactic military, towering behemoths averaging 8 feet, bred for battle. Keshra Valn was the anomaly, the defect her clan had mocked and cast out. She climbed the steps slowly, her bare feet leaving wet prints on the metal grating. As she slid into the seat beside him, their hands brushed during the fare exchange, a fleeting contact that sent a jolt through Marcus like static from a faulty wire. Her skin was velvet soft yet resilient, warm despite the chill. For the first 30 nights, she rode in silence. Marcus learned her patterns through observation. She slept in the terminal's alcoves, survived on nutrient bars from vending machines, and carried herself with a quiet dignity that belied her size. He began leaving small gestures, an extra thermal jacket on the seat, a thermos of hot synth coffee to ward off the cold. In return, she'd place half a piece of Varani spice bread on the dashboard, its aroma filling the cabin with hints of cinnamon and distant stars. Neither acknowledged the exchanges with words. It was an unspoken pact, a fragile bridge built in the dead of night. One evening, as the bus rumbled through the undercity tunnels, she finally spoke. "Why?" Her voice was low, melodic, laced with an accent that rolled like thunder over alien plains. Marcus glanced at her, blonde hair catching the glow of passing holograms. "Because no one should ride alone in the rain," he replied simply. That night, as she disembarked, her 4 hands lingered a second longer on the doorframe, and Marcus felt the first crack in his armored heart. Little did he know, this tiny warrior was about to upend his world. The blackout hit like a hammer from the gods, plunging New Terra into primal darkness. Route 47's bus stalled in a derelict underpass, its electric heart silenced by the grid failure. Outside, the rain hammered relentlessly, but inside, tension crackled thicker than the storm. Marcus gripped the wheel, his military instincts kicking in as shadows moved beyond the windows. 3 burly human enforcers, off-duty and reeking of cheap synth alcohol, eyeing the vehicle like easy prey. They boarded through the emergency exit, their laughter echoing as they zeroed in on Kess, huddled in the back for once because the front seat was occupied by a malfunctioning panel. "Looks like we got ourselves a purple pocket pet," the leader sneered, his bulk towering over her 4'10" frame. Kess' golden eyes narrowed, blonde hair still damp from the earlier drizzle, but she didn't flinch. Marcus, heart pounding, reached for the emergency hammer stowed under his seat, his mind flashing to old battlefield drills. He started forward, ready to swing, but he never made a dot in a blur that defied physics. Kess erupted. Her forearms uncoiled like springs, deep violet-purple skin flushing with adrenaline as she struck. The first enforcer went down with a precise jab to the solar plexus, gasping like a beached fish. The second swung wildly. She ducked under his arm, using her low center to sweep his legs while two hands twisted his wrist until he howled. The third, seeing his friends crumple, lunged, but Kes was already there, her blonde braid whipping as she delivered a flurry of strikes that left him slumped against the seats, begging in broken standard. It was over in under 10 seconds, her movements a deadly dance of efficiency and restraint. Never once raising her voice, when the auxiliary lights flickered back on, Kes stood trembling not from fear, but from the raw effort of holding back her full Varani fury. Tears glistened on her purple cheeks as she looked up at Marcus, who had frozen mid-step. "I didn't want you to see the monster they made me," she whispered, voice breaking like fragile glass. The scars on her back ritual marks her clan had tried to erase itched under her soaked shirt. Marcus lowered the hammer, his massive frame softening as he approached. Without a word, he shrugged off his oversized jacket and draped it around her shoulders. It enveloped her like a tent, hanging to her ankles. "I didn't see a monster," he said gruffly, his deep voice steady. "I saw my guardian angel protecting this bus and maybe me." He pulled her into a tentative embrace, her face pressing against his broad chest, forearms hesitantly circling his waist. The contact was electric, her warmth seeping through his uniform as blonde strands tickled his neck. In that moment, amidst the wreckage, something shifted, a spark of intimacy born from chaos, promising nights yet to come. With the blackout behind them, Kes claimed the front seat as her permanent domain. The routine deepened. Marcus arrived with his infamous terrible coffee, brewed strong enough to strip paint, while Kes countered with Varani honey cakes, flaky pastries infused with spices that evoked sunsets on worlds he'd never seen. Their conversation started haltingly, like engines sputtering to life. He shared fragments of his past, the war that had shattered his leg and soul, leaving him to drive nights because daylight brought too many ghosts. She revealed her scars, literal and metaphorical, the ritual burns across her back, inflicted by her clan to correct her perceived weakness, stripping away medals she'd earned in secret trainings. One particularly brutal storm night, the heater sputtered and died, turning the cabin into an icebox. Rain lashed the windows like accusations. Marcus glanced at Kes, her deep violet-purple skin prickling with goosebumps under her thin tunic, long blonde hair braided but frizzing in the humidity. "We'll freeze if we don't share heat," he suggested, voice low to mask his nervousness. She nodded, golden eyes gleaming with unspoken trust, and climbed into his lap, a perfect fit despite their size difference. Her forearms wrapped around him tentatively at first, then fully, pulling him close as if anchoring against the gale outside. His large hands settled on her back, tracing the raised scars with gentle reverence, learning the topography of her pain. She shivered not from cold now, but from the intimacy of being touched without judgment. "You see me," she murmured against his collarbone, her breath warm on his skin. Marcus tilted her chin up, his thumb brushing her full lips. Their first kiss was slow, exploratory, a meeting of worlds. She tasted of honey cake and wild storms, her forehands exploring his broad shoulders, fingers tangling in his shirt. He deepened the kiss, one hand cupping her face while the other slid along the curve of her waist, feeling the powerful muscles beneath velvet skin. They didn't rush beyond kisses that night, content with the budding heat between them. But every subsequent ride built on it, stolen glances turning to lingering touches, her blonde hair spilling over his arm as she leaned against him during quiet stretches. He learned the sensitive spot just below her lowest ribs that made her gasp softly, arching into his palm. She discovered how his neck tensed under stress, massaging it away with two hands while the other two held his free one. The driver's cabin became their sanctuary, a bubble of warmth amid the city's cold sprawl. By the end of the month, what started as survival had blossomed into something profound, a romance woven from shared silences and tender revelations, proving that vulnerability was the truest strength. 6 months of stolen nights had woven them into each other's orbits, but the dawn after a rare clear sky felt like destiny. The twin suns of New Terra rose in a blaze of gold and rose, painting the empty depot in ethereal light as Marcus killed the engine. The bus sighed to a halt, and he turned to Kes, her deep violet-purple skin glowing softly, long blonde hair loose and cascading like a golden waterfall over her shoulders. She sat cross-legged on the seat, forearms folded in her lap, golden eyes watching him with a mix of hope and fear. "I'm 6'4" and built like a tank," he began, voice rough with emotion. "But I've never felt big enough to protect what truly matters, not until you." He reached for her hand, engulfing it in his. "You're 4'10", Kes, and you make the whole damn galaxy feel safe in your shadow. Be mine. All of you." Tears traced silver paths down her cheeks, but she smiled, a radiant thing that lit the cabin brighter than the sun's. "I was invisible, a joke to my people," she replied, voice trembling. "Until you looked down and saw everything, the warrior, the woman, the whole of me." She climbed the step between seats, bringing their eyes level. 4 hands cupped his face, thumbs brushing his stubbled jaw as she pulled him into a kiss that ignited like a supernova. It was hungry now, months of restraint unraveling. His jacket hit the floor, followed by her tunic, revealing the elegant lines of her purple formful curves and battle-hardened muscles. In the soft dawn glow, Marcus worshipped her, lips trailing from her mouth to the column of her throat, down to the scars on her back, kissing each as if to heal them. She arched, gasping, her blonde hair tangling in his fists as 2 hands clutched his shoulders, the other 2 exploring the planes of his chest. Unbuttoning his shirt with deft precision, they fit together seamlessly, her strength cradling his gentleness, his sighs enveloping her fire. When they joined, it was a symphony of slow and reverent movements, the bus rocking gently on its suspension like a cradle in the cosmos. She whispered his name like a mantra, golden eyes locked on his as waves of pleasure built and crashed. Afterward, they lay tangled in the makeshift nest of discarded clothes, her head on his chest, 4 arms draped possessively over him while he stroked her blonde locks. "This is home," she murmured, and Marcus knew it was true. Their love had shaken not just their worlds, but the very stars above. A year had transformed Route 47 into a legend among New Terra's night owls. Passengers whispered about the safe shuttle where trouble evaporated before it began. Marcus had rebuilt the front cabin with Kes in mind, a lowered co-pilot seat for her stature, reinforced panels to withstand her occasional bursts of strength. She wore his ring on a chain around her neck, too large for her fingers, and his jacket like a cherished dress. Her long blonde hair now bore a streak of his auburn, woven in during a quiet Varani bonding ritual under the depot's artificial moons. Their tiny apartment above the terminal was a haven of contrasts, his massive boots by the door next to her petite ones, a bed reinforced for playful wrestling matches that always ended in laughter. Every morning, after the shift, they made love slow and sleepy 4 purple arms pinning him effortlessly to the mattress as she straddled him, golden eyes gleaming with mischief. He'd surrender with a grin, hands roaming her deep violet skin, tracing curves and scars alike, eliciting soft moans that echoed through the thin walls. Other times it was tender, her nestled against his side, blonde hair fanned across his chest while they whispered dreams of a future beyond the rain-slicked streets. Some still muttered that she was too small for a warrior's life. or for him. Marcus just smiled, pressing a kiss to the top of her head as they boarded the bus each night. Drunk agitators and would-be thieves learned quickly. One glare from Kess, her forearms flexing subtly, and they'd remember urgent appointments elsewhere. Passengers felt it too, the aura of protection, the quiet romance that made the cold rides warmer. One evening, as the city lights blurred past, Kess leaned against him, her hand on his thigh. "We balance the stars," she said softly. Marcus nodded, weaving his fingers through hers. Their love had spread ripples, refugees inspired to stand tall, humans learning that strength wore many forms. The galaxy, vast and often cruel, seemed a little less cold with them in it. Route 47 rolled on, eternal as the night. At 217, without fail, a giant human driver and his fierce little violet warrior proved that love didn't measure in inches or feet, only in the infinite space it carved in hearts. They'd face storms, blackouts, and prejudices, emerging stronger, intertwined. As twin suns set and rose, their story whispered through the undercity. Size was illusion. True power was in seeing and being seen. And in that, they were giants among the stars.